Hey guys, it's Sarah and I'm back today with my favorite required reading. So all of these are books that I read from junior high on to college, and I tried to pick books that were specifically assigned to me, that I had no sort of choice in like picking it off a list or just choosing it for like a book report or anything like that. These were all, like I said, specifically assigned, and I had no real choice whether I wanted to read them or not. um, I was one of those people that really disliked required reading. I went into a lot of books, especially in high school, feeling really negatively about, and I think that affected how I felt about the books in general. And I wish I could go back and reread some of the books that I read for class, because I feel like if I read them now, I would probably feel very differently about them, or at least get more out of them um, than I did back in school. But I think that makes this list of books that I'm going to mention all the more special, I guess I want to say, because they are books that, despite me disliking not having a choice in the matter, I really loved. And these are all books that I would recommend to people. These are all books that I've gotten something out of and have made me like open up. And I think that's the good thing about reading books for school, is that it gives you a different perspective a lot of times into maybe different cultures or different people. And I mean, obviously that's the point of school is to like learn about different things and to learn about life. And I think, these books, a lot of them were kind of an introduction to what I love about literature today, and what I appreciate about reading even now. All these books you might recognize, you might not. A lot of them I don't have physical copies of, so I'm just gonna try to talk about them the best I can. Um, yeah. So I guess let's get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And this book, I think a lot of people had to read in junior high. I read it, I believe, in 7th grade. I'm going to try to do these books in some sort of chronological order, but I could get it wrong. But you guys won't know, so I guess it doesn't matter. So yeah, The Outsiders, if you don't know, is about two kind of rival gangs. It's the Greasers, which are like the good guys, and then the Socias, which are like higher economic status, and they have a little bit more of advantage in life. And they get into a rumble, into a fight, and it all kind of uh, goes wrong, as those things tend to go wrong. Um, and yeah, the story is just really tragic. It's pretty heartbreaking. But I think what I love about it, at least, is how relatable the characters were and how much I ended up loving each of the characters. And so it's that much more tragic at the end, when your favorite characters experience sadness and death and all those things. So yeah, really just, I don't know, if you haven't read it, definitely read it. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised if most people have already read that one. So the next book I want to talk about is not actually a book, it's a short story, and that is The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. And this is kind of what got me into reading scary stories, and what I loved first about kind of psychological thrillers and human nature in general and how that can go wrong. And The Cask of Amontillado takes place in Italy during a carnival, and it's about a guy sort of seeking revenge and what happens when he tries to do that. I think this story in general has always kind of stuck with me as like my favorite of all the Poes, because yeah, it just roots into one of my deepest, darkest fears, and definitely really terrifying for me when I read it. The next book on the list is the one that I have a physical copy of. Woohoo! I also have this book in CD, like audiobooks, because yes, I listened to this while I was reading it. good times. um, and this is The Chosen by, no, I'm gonna say this wrong, Kayam Potak. I'm sorry, I apologize. I really can't say names correctly. But anyways, um, if you don't know, this book is about a Jewish boy and his friend, and they both they grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and they both grew up in sort of different sides of the Jewish Orthodox faith. So, yeah, I think one is Russian Orthodox, and the other one is Hasidic Jew. And it talks a lot about them and their relationship with their fathers and their relationship with their religion and how they have to deal with being American Jews. This takes place during the kind of start of the American involvement in World War II and sort of divides their religion. And yeah, it's just really interesting from someone who didn't know a whole lot about the Jewish faith. I still don't really, but who's kind of an outsider in the whole thing. And I really, I don't know, I just remember reading this book, and it was sort of my first experience with a beautifully written book. So yeah, if you're interested at all in kind of Jewish American history and Jewish history in general, definitely read this book. I would recommend any of these books, like I said, because they are my favorites, and I have recommended them to several people who I know. If you haven't already read them, definitely go out and read them because they are great. um, the next book that I want to talk about is another book that I read for 10th grade, which I read The Chosen for, and this was the same summer that I read that. I read Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. This book is a lot like The Chosen in the fact that it deals with a father-son relationship and a history of a country, but this takes place in South Africa and deals with a lot of the race issues that were happening or did happen in the country and the injustices that took place. I annotated both The Chosen and Cry the Beloved Country for that class, and yeah, there was a lot of just things that I had to talk about and things that I wanted to write about for both of these stories. And so I think that kind of says a lot about a book is that the more it makes you think, the more, I don't know, the more I love it typically. um, so yeah. The next short story I want to talk about is A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. This is about a time traveling safari and like businessmen that go back in time and they hunt dinosaurs. Well, what ends up happening is they kill a butterfly, and then that sort of ripple effect happens. So when they go back into their present time, everything is changed. And yeah, it's just the most interesting uh, concept to talk about. I mean, I know that's like a well-known theory, the butterfly effect. Like I said, it's really interesting to think about, and I remember really loving that short story, even more so than, um, oh, what's the other one? There Will Come Soft Rain, which we also read that year. Um, and yeah, I know I've said this in other videos, but I would love to read more Bradbury. I need to get on that because yeah, just his writing and his ideas. I just find his storytelling really intriguing, and I can't wait to kind of read more. And I'd love to go back and reread that story. The next book I want to talk about is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and this book I read in my senior year of high school, and the reason it's on this list is mostly because I was totally not expecting to love this book as much as I did, but I did. And if you haven't ever read this book or don't think that maybe you would really like this book, I would still recommend picking it up. If you have read the book, you'll know that the book and the movie are quite different at times, and I think the way, um, oh, what's his face? The grandpa guy, played his role was a lot different than how he is portrayed in the book. And I don't know, I just felt like there were so many more ethical questions that were kind of explored during the book that maybe weren't um, focused on in the movie, and maybe I'm remembering that wrong, but I just feel like that was one thing that I remembered from the book. So blown away and so kind of uh, unexpectedly in love with that book, and I'd love to read it again. I keep saying that about all these books, but really, I wish I had more time to reread books and read all the books on my TBR that I haven't read. But that's not the way the world works. So, oh well. The last two books I'm going to talk about are from college, and the first one is an old Greek play, and that is Lysistrata by Aristophanes. And this is a pretty tiny book, but it's hilarious. um, and yeah, I wouldn't think in a million years that I would really like a old Greek play, but if you're gonna read one, read this one. It's always gonna be relevant. It's about kind of gender relations and power in between genders and how kind of that plays out. Um, it's about a group of women during a wartime who decide that they're going to withhold sex from the men in order to stop the war. And yeah, it's just a great concept, and like I said, really funny, and just will always be relevant because of, I mean, genders are always going to be here. We're always going to be uh, different than men. So, yeah, definitely go out and read that. And the last book is The Odyssey by Homer. And this book is another kind of unexpected love for me because I never really had the desire to read this book. I always thought it was going to go kind of over my head or that it'd be hard to read. But this is super easy to read, not hard to understand or to really get. Um, and it's easy to get into, and it's kind of easy to get caught up in the story, and so much happens. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think this book um, got me into just kind of Greek mythology and mythology in general. I'd love to say that I went on to like study a lot of mythology, but I haven't yet. It's just I keep reading things that bring up myths, and I find them very intriguing, and I find that like religion and beliefs and stuff like that very intriguing. And so yeah, I definitely want to do more research on this, and I'd love to read this again and read the Iliad and stuff like that. But I just, I'll find the time eventually. It'll happen, right? Okay, well, that's all the books on my list. And yeah, I keep talking with my hands today. Mm, mm, Ooh. Let me know what your favorite required reading was in school or is in school. And yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, how you felt about these books. Talk to me in the comments, guys. And have a good day. Bye.